It's here, folks. My beautiful raspberry new GreenStalk just came in the mail and barely under the wire because there is a buy one get one sale happening right now, and this color is going to be retired on February 17th 2025. Today's Valentine's Day, so I am so excited. I've been eyeing this color for quite a while and I'm so glad it came on sale. So today I'm going to be setting it up and I'm going to be sharing with you 11 more awesome tips on how to set up your GreenStalk. And yes, 11 more awesome tips because I already shared a video, 11 awesome tips, a couple of years ago, and I think about 80,000 of you have watched that as of today, and I got a lot of really great comments on those videos, more tips, and I am going to be incorporating a lot of those as well as other tips that I've picked up both from friends as well as from the Facebook group for GreenStalk gardeners. So this video is going to be loaded with tips. Let's get this set up and let's get it planted up. First off, read the manual from beginning to end. Yes, even the last page. My husband always says, read the freaking manual. I never do, but in this case, every word in this manual is really important. It starts off with talking about the soil, because if there's one thing that will totally mess up your GreenStalk, it's not using the right kind of soil. So using high quality soil, which is really light, that's really important, and we're going to be showing you my secret mix in just a moment. And then it talks about what you can plant in the GreenStalk. It shows you various steps, how you want to fill it up to the very top. Don't tamp it down really hard. Again, lightness is key when it comes to GreenStalk soil. And then how to plant it, how to set it up, how to make sure that the legs fit well. I'm going to be getting into all these details, but I wanted you to know that this contains pretty much everything that you need to know about setting up the GreenStalk, but it does not have all the details of the how and the why, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you because I've learned a lot of stuff, frankly, the hard way. And do take the time to understand how the watering system works, because that is something that you can easily mess up. The watering system of the GreenStalk is its differentiator in the market, really, and it works really well if you do certain things right, or you can mess it up. So understand how it works. And then finally, it also talks about ongoing, how to maintain your GreenStalk once you've set it up and the plants start growing. So every little detail, super important. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to get this raspberry color is because flowers look absolutely amazing in it. And I've been wanting to grow more different types of flowers in the GreenStalk. So I am going to actually be doing some experiments, and I'll show you those in just a minute. And we will see how they do this year. So follow along with my channel. I post regular updates on my GreenStalk. Now, location is very important when you set up your GreenStalk. You want to make sure you put it somewhere where it gets plenty of sun. But maybe even more importantly, you want to make sure that the surface that you're putting it on is extremely stable. And I always get the ultimate spinner with wheels because I end up moving my GreenStalk because for whatever reason, the sun or the surface is not as stable as I thought it was, or there are heavy winds. And when there are heavy winds, GreenStalks can fall if they are not well protected. And I talked all about it in a video that I just made. In fact, I just had an incident where one of my GreenStalks fell. It was not pleasant. Anyway, so make sure that the surface that you're putting it on is extremely stable, and don't skimp on the base, you guys. I bought a cheapo base from Amazon and the GreenStalk just did not sit properly on it. I couldn't move it too well and I could not spin it. This thing spins so beautifully, and you do need to be able to spin it, particularly if you're not getting ample sunshine on your GreenStalk. You need to be able to spin it almost every day if possible, whenever you can. Another thing that you do want to consider is possibly at some point being able to set up irrigation for your GreenStalk. Now, particularly if you live in a hot, dry climate like I do in Northern California, Zone 9B, our summers are hot and extremely dry and extremely long, and it's very difficult to keep the GreenStalk watered properly by just doing the even once a day fill up at the top. What I do is I've got all of my GreenStalks set up to irrigation, and I run it for maybe a minute or so in the morning and a minute or so in the afternoon every day during the hottest part of the year. And that made, I will tell you, the biggest difference between Nah, GreenStalk versus amazing GreenStalk. So watering is so important for your GreenStalk, and irrigation is probably the best way to go. Okay, let's talk about your GreenStalk soil. I already mentioned to you that lightness is probably the most important property of GreenStalk soil. I DIY my mix these days, but I have used, GreenStalk's got a list of soil mixes that you can purchase, and it needs to be soil-less. In other words, no garden soil, no topsoil, no sand, nothing really heavy. Whatever you put in the GreenStalk has to be super, super light. So they recommend mixes like ProMix and Fox Farm, and I've used ProMix in the past very successfully. But I make my own these days because it's really easy to make your own soil and you know exactly what's going in there. So I've got all my ingredients stacked up over here for mixing up my soil mix, and mainly the recipe is 1:1:1. So 1 part of peat moss or cocoa coir, 1 part of my homemade compost here, or you can buy store-bought compost or manure, and then 1 part of a mixture of vermiculite and perlite. Now I go heavy on perlite because it creates a nice airiness in the soil. Vermiculite also creates lightness, but it holds on to moisture and it holds on to nutrients as well. And then I throw in about maybe a cup of organic slow release fertilizer into each of the tiers. Let's go ahead and mix it, but you have to wear a mask. The perlite particularly and vermiculite kick up a lot of dust. So this, by the way, is a tip that one of my viewers gave me, is to use a kiddie pool, you know, those plastic kiddie pools that you can get to mix your soil, and it has been awesome. I've only been using this. By the way, this is not a kiddie pool. This is actually one of those in-ground pool kind of plastic things. I don't much care, frankly, for the kiddie pool because the plastic is very flimsy, but this thing is sturdy plastic. I was very lucky to get it for free on Nextdoor, and it is sturdy plastic, and it'll last me hopefully forever, and it is great to mix it. Another thing that is really great to mix compost is this tool. I don't even know what it's called, but it's great because you can easily spin the soil with this tool. So let's go ahead and mix this up. Okay, so it's all mixed up. It took me all of 5 minutes, you guys. It is so easy to make your own soil. You should really consider doing it. My GreenStalks are flourishing with this recipe that I just shared with you. So that's a tip to save some money. GreenStalks are not cheap, and the soil is really expensive if you have to add on that expense. Most people don't realize that you buy your GreenStalk for whatever, even on sale, say for $100 for a 5-tier, you're going to spend another $100, maybe a little bit less, on soil. So it's quite an investment, and if you could make your own, it's a huge saving. Okay, so this is where I'm going to be setting up my GreenStalk, and this is my ultimate spinner base. I realized that in my last video I didn't show you the details of how the ultimate spinner works, and people were like, hey, how does that thing work? So let me show you up close. It's got 6 wheels. 3 of them are locking wheels. So let's see, this one over here. So this wheel does not turn unless you lift this, and now it'll turn. So they advise that you lock the wheels when you are setting up your GreenStalk, so it's not kind of moving around on you. And then it's got this tube over here, and what the tube does is, as the water comes from the top and drains into this, there are all these little holes here, and they drain out through this. Now what a lot of people do is they actually capture the water, because the water that they use often contains fertilizer, and you don't want to be wasting the fertilizer, so they capture it and then they pour it back into the GreenStalk. So that's what I'm going to be doing, is I'm going to be putting it here so that I can put a bucket right here and capture the water that's flowing out of it. Now, as we fill this up with soil, a couple of tips. Number 1, don't wet the soil before you fill it. It becomes really heavy with the water and it's difficult to move it around. So be gentle on your back and water it after you position it in its final destination. Now, another way of doing it that actually I got as a tip from one of my viewers is to stack it first in its final destination, and then fill it with soil and then water it. Now, I think that's a great idea. I'm not sure how it's going to work as you go further up, but at least for the first couple of them, it should work. You also want to use some masking tape to cover this hole because soil does tend to get in. And especially as you keep stacking them, you've got to put this gray saucer in between, and the tier on the top might drop dirt into the gray saucer if you don't cover the hole. And that is absolutely terrible for the watering system. If any dirt gets into this gray saucer, you see these tiny little holes here? Yeah, if they get blocked up, it's really bad news for the watering system. So make sure that it stays perfectly clean. Actually, in my prior video, I got some dirt in there, and one of the viewers said, hey, you shouldn't get dirt in the gray saucer. I paid the price for that later on. My watering system blocked up later in the season, so just take extra special care to keep your gray saucer clean. And I just wanted to show you the soil from up close, or the soil-less mix from up close. You see how much perlite there is? Yeah, that's how much perlite you need in order to keep the lightness in your soil. So my advice is, when you think you've added enough perlite, add just a little bit more. You want to fill it all the way to the top and tamp it down ever so slightly. Now once you water this in, the soil will settle even further, so you're going to have to top it off just one more time after you water it. Now you can water it from the top, but one of the things that people say when they water it from the top after they're done stacking everything, if the soil is really dry, it takes a few times to refill the saucer on the top before this can get totally moist. The thing is, this soil, particularly if it's peat-based, is pretty hydrophobic, so it takes a little bit to get it wet. That's why I like to water it tier by tier as I stack it up. And then after that, once the soil is really moist, it tends to absorb moisture and hold on to moisture a lot better than if it's absolutely dry. Yeah, people say that it flows right through, the water's flowing right through, what am I doing wrong? Well, you're not doing anything wrong, it's just that your soil is really hydrophobic. That's looking so much better. I mustn't forget to remove my little blue masking tape. And something that I always forget to do is to put my gray saucer on. So I like to flatten this out just a little bit and then put my gray saucer right over here, and if there is any dirt at all, remove it. So just real quick about the buy one get one sale that's going on right now. It's buy a 5-tier original planter and you get a 3-tier free. So the reason I like it so much is because I like to restack my planters to be a more reasonable height for me. So for me, having 5 plus 3 and turning that into 4 plus 4 was absolutely perfect. And by the way, I do have an affiliate link. If you use my code GreenLove10, I would really appreciate it. It would support this channel. So I'm going to go ahead and stack these. Now you can plant as you stack, or you can plant after you stack. In this particular case, I'm going to plant after I stack because I want to show you some interesting things that I'm going to be doing this year with these planters. Okay, so I ran out of my soil mix, you guys. I guess that's a disadvantage of making your own soil, is if you don't make enough, you will run out and then you're gonna have to mix more, and it's kind of a pain. So mix more than you think you need, I guess, is the lesson learned here. But I do want to finish this video today, so I'm going to show you what I'm going to be planting in my GreenStalk, because there is something that is available this time that wasn't available when I made the video last time around, and that is, let me show you. Seed houses. Now, these seed houses are, I guess, intended for you to start seeds. Now, you know how with the GreenStalk, the soil will tend to dry out in the pockets pretty quickly, and the top watering system is great, but if the soil is nice and moist and the roots have reached down, it's great. But for seeds, that superficial soil needs to be moist until the seeds germinate. So think of this as a little humidity dome that you can attach to your pocket that will keep your seeds nice and warm and cozy and moist until they germinate. Now, there are a few other things that I have found that this is really useful for. Number one, I've got a horrendous problem with squirrels. This thing really protects my young seedlings from squirrel attacks, so it's great for that. It's also great when there's pouring rain and you've got those tiny seedlings. This really helps protect them from getting beaten down by the rain. And for frost as well, I get mild frosts. I don't live in a very cold place, so I get some mild frosts, and it does help keep things like marigold seedlings that are a little bit frost sensitive, it keeps them well protected. It's kind of like, I don't know whether you guys have done winter sowing where you've got a milk jug and you plant seeds in it. Well, it's kind of like that. It's a humidity dome that allows you to grow things outdoors. So that's what I'm going to be using it for. And in addition to starting seeds with this, another thing that this is super useful for is to keep cuttings moist. So I'm going to be planting some cuttings. I've got snapdragons that grow really well from cuttings. So I'm going to be starting those in the GreenStalk. Okay, so let's see what we're going to be planting. So a nice little collection of plants here. Let's start with the geraniums. Now these are plants that I got as cuttings from a friend, and I want them to actually stay in these spots for maybe at least this year, and then once they start growing nice and vigorously, I want to make more cuttings and then make more plants and plant them in other parts of my garden. So I'm also going to be using my GreenStalk kind of like a nursery for plants that are really too tiny to put in the ground, and I will eventually put them in the ground, but I am going to start them off in the GreenStalk, if that makes sense. And if you've been watching my videos, you know that one thing I advise people to do is never grow perennials in your GreenStalk because the root systems just get too large over time and you do need to restack your GreenStalk. I do it every year. Some people can get away with 2 years, but I am a round the year kind of gardener because my warm climate, my mild winters allow me to grow beautiful plants in the winter as well. So my GreenStalks are put to a lot of heavy use, and so I do restack them because perennial plants will tend to clog up the watering system over time, if that makes sense. The roots kind of grow into the gray saucers. Things like mint, if you plant, they will actually grow through the little holes in the GreenStalk tiers from the bottom, you know, the watering holes, and they will clog up your GreenStalk. So do not grow mint in your GreenStalk. I'm growing verbena this year, and that's also kind of a spreading plant, but not as aggressive as mint. So let's see whether I can get that to establish. But the whole idea is to plant more flowers and see whether I can grow actually larger flower plants in the GreenStalk. I've got fuchsia over here. This also is a perennial, so it'll stay in my GreenStalk just for about a year. Daisies as well. These are marguerite daisies. I love the colors that they come in. And this is verbena, like I talked about. This is penstemon. You can see how tiny those seedlings are. They're not going to do very well in the ground. I've got roly-polies and other things that are going to make short work of it. And then I've got one of my favorite plants that I love growing in the GreenStalk, and this is a Johnny Jump Up. This is a volunteer actually, so I'm going to plant that in the GreenStalk since it seems like it wants to grow. I've got some snapdragons that I'm growing from seed, and like I said, I have also got snapdragon plants, and I'm going to be cutting some cuttings from them. This looks like a good one, so I'll get my snips and I'll make a few cuttings. I'll put the seed house over it, and let's hope it grows. So one more thing I did want to talk to you about was the colors. So they have got certain colors that they have most of the time. I think evergreen and stunning stone are two fairly consistent colors. No guarantees. Terracotta used to be one of those colors that was always available, but then they did decide to retire that, and I had kind of invested in terracotta because I wanted that uniform color. And then when they retired that, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't get terracotta anymore. But that is when I discovered that they actually like to do that. They like to have these limited edition colors, and they come up with amazing colors. And so when I saw this raspberry, I just had to have it. So yeah, don't get too attached to the colors. In fact, that's one of the big selling points of the GreenStalk is the beautiful colors that they come up with. And the limited editions, once they don't sell them on the GreenStalk website anymore, they actually do tend to sell them through some of their retailers, Epic Gardening, Garden Answer. There's a whole list of them. You can go to the GreenStalk website and search for online retailers and you'll find a list of them. They've actually got some international locations as well, so that's pretty cool. Australia, Europe, etc. So yeah, don't get too attached to the colors. And this raspberry chocolate brown is also going to be retired, by the way, you guys, on February 17th. So if you want any of these colors, you want to get them now. And one more thing, the lids, you can see this one over here. I like to buy those in black because that way I can restack the GreenStalks and I don't have to worry about matching colors. I can always use black, and this kind of blends into the background. It's not very visible. So yeah, that's another little tip that I learned the hard way. I actually had saucers that I had bought in terracotta, and now I can't use those anymore. So at least the lids, get them in black, and you can use them no matter what colors get retired. Okay, it's getting a little bit dark, but I did want to talk to you about the resources that you can use for GreenStalks to learn more about them. Of course, there's the website. It's a hugely valuable resource. Go check it out. It's got frequently asked questions, and I suggest you go through all of them. And then it's got blogs and tips from Jack and all kinds of goodies that you can download, like templates on how to plan your GreenStalk, just a wealth of stuff. So go ahead and check out the resources that are available on their website. That's your first stop. Another resource that is very valuable, they talk about on the last page of your manual, is the Facebook group. Now, this Facebook group is called GreenStalk Gardeners, and lots of very passionate, enthusiastic GreenStalk gardeners, including myself, on that site. And they are always sharing tips, asking questions. You can learn a wealth of stuff from there. And they also post pictures of their GreenStalk. It is just so inspirational. So I highly, highly recommend that you join that group and participate in it actively. Another thing that I actually learned from that group, and which is also another resource, is a magazine that GreenStalk produces annually. Now, this magazine is available both in digital form as well as a hard copy, and every year that book contains a code that you can use to get stuff for free, and it changes over the course of the year, so you never know what you get, but it's always something really awesome. Last year they were actually giving away ultimate spinners. So if you bought the wheels, all you needed to do was buy $50 worth of stuff and you got that for free. So I really stocked up on my ultimate spinners and got the wheels. I purchased the wheels and I got all those spinners. And that was actually a tip that someone in the GreenStalk Gardener Facebook group told me about. So very, very valuable resource. And then last but by no means least, you see this lady over here? That's Susie. She is the head gardener, and they have an amazing, amazing customer support hotline that you can call, and you can actually set up time to talk with Susie. So knowledgeable. And I actually called her once and she answered all my questions very much to my satisfaction. And you know what the nice thing was is I had questions and I was kind of rushing through them, and she kind of slowed me down and said, hey, I've got time. I don't have anything going on after this meeting. I can stick around and answer more questions. I mean, how often do you find that these days? This is a wonderful company, you guys. You can see the family over here. It's an all-American family-owned business, and yeah, I love supporting family-owned businesses, and this is one of the best. So yeah, definitely take advantage of these resources, the online resources, and definitely the customer support is one of the best. So if you've got any great tips to share, please do add them to the comments below. I would love to read them, and I would love to have a discussion with you about them. I hope you found this useful, folks. Give it a thumbs up, and until next time, live green and love your greens, your GreenStalks.